Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Behind the Devil's Curtain, Episode 8. Come on in. This is the show where sleight of hand, forbidden knowledge come together and we get some real magic. Come on in, everybody. Grab a drink. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in. Grab a drink. This is Behind the Devil's Curtain. My name is Reverend Cardone, and I got a show for you tonight. Listen, I got a big group in here already. Listen, if this feed cuts off because of the powers to be or the weather or who knows what, give it 5 minutes, check back. I might have to reboot the system, and if that doesn't work, go to Cardone Magic on Instagram. Cardone Magic. I put it all in the link. Welcome, everybody. Come on in. Thank you, Aaron. Somebody just tipped me already. That's awesome. Your tip goes right in the show. Come on in. If you're new to this channel and this show, oh, does it say episode 7 in the description? Wow. Justin caught a mini mistake. Maybe in the description. Hold on, let me see something. Weird. There are so many weird things of how these things work that sometimes I'm baffled. Good one. Well, tonight I got a crazy episode, something I've been working on for a while. But before we get there, a little warning. Okay, there's my warning. Actually, before I begin, I do have a few things to say to set up tonight's episode, because tonight's called Warlord Moses, and we might ruffle some feathers tonight about what we're talking about, but we shouldn't, because we're just talking, and we're learning. That's what this is all about. And I know we got a smart crowd in here. Tonight is an interactive show, as all my shows are. Please, comment if somebody has a counterpoint, and we have some Bible-believing Christians or Jewish people, yes, point me in the right direction. I've been reading and studying this subject matter my whole life, and if I'm going in the wrong path, point me to where I need to read or look up or do my research on, and I will do that. Thank you. Thank you, Lazarus. And if we have new people in here tonight, please hit that subscribe and notify and like. It's the least you can do if you're having a good time. If you're having a really good time, we do have a donation system. Now, I am not monetized because I don't have 1,000 subscribers yet. But there it is right now. Once I have 1,000 subscribers, this all gets very easy. But I kind of want to get into this one quick tonight. Now, I have a million notes here. Good evening. We got Amanda, we got William, we got Aaron, Lazarus, Sean, Jason, Aaron, who else? Mark. My gosh, so many people. Come on in, come on in. I have a lot tonight, and I wanted to start with another warning of sorts, and it's not a warning. Tonight's episode gets a little hairy on some subjects that people take very seriously, and that's fine. We live in a country where free speech reigns, or it's supposed to, and I think the only way to work out our differences and disagreements and learn is by this, chatting, talking, debating. When I meet people that are like, they hate debate and chatter, I don't know what to do. I love it. It's how I learn things. I go through it and I debate, and that's how I got here today. The drink I'm going to be drinking tonight, I always show what I'm drinking, because why would I not? It's definitely my favorite new thing to drink. Athletic Brewing Company, All Out. That's the actual one. The other ones they make are okay. This is the one. And I do prefer drinking it this way, and I like my beer a little warm. Cheers to the English people watching. I do. I don't like it. I like it room temperature. I don't like it cold, cold. Cheers, everybody. I know. I think most of the people in here like a good debate. As I get older, I don't like debating all the time with people I'm not going to convince. If there are people that might be convinced by my debating with somebody else, then I might jump in. And yes, William, uncomfortable truth talks are awesome. This is what I do. This is my favorite thing in the world. And I do like history, and I do like theology and philosophy. And that's what this show is tonight. Warlord Moses. We're going to dig into a few Bible stories and a few moral teachings of the Bible that ever since I was a little kid, I had a problem with. I want to start tonight right now by giving you, the audience, a little bit of the point of view I'm coming from here, because I think you need to know that. Whenever I'm reading a philosopher, I want to know where he's coming from. Oh yeah, this is going to be a good chat. So if you're new to this tonight, I recommend watching the show, but look at the chat, because we got a group of people in here that know a lot and think a lot and have things to say. And if somebody has a counterpoint, and we have some religious people in here, please join in the debate. This is what we do. Yeah. The evil stories of the Old Testament. Well, yes. Now, we will say that there's some evil stories in the Old Testament, but I will say, I'm going to give you some things to think about that will make you maybe see it in a different way. Now, I'm not defending some of these stories, but I'm going to try to let you in on the mentality of who and how people justify these things. And that's what this show ultimately is about tonight. And I'm a fan of, if there's something you don't like, when you understand it in a lot of detail, you usually don't hate it as much. You just don't care. You become more indifferent to it. And to me, indifference is better. So, I'm coming tonight from, we're talking about the Torah, the Old Testament, the ancient text that we call the Old Testament, the Holy Bible. And I'm going to be talking about it through the eyes of an atheist agnostic. I call myself an atheist agnostic because, well, I'm an atheist. If you say, do you believe in a God? I define God as a deity, like a guy in the sky, a man, an energy that's thinking, whatever. Do you believe that there's a God? My answer is no. I don't believe it. I have yet to see evidence of that type. If you have a loose definition of the God being everything that we know and whatever, that's fine. You can define it however you want. I'm talking about deities. So I'm coming from that. Now, as an agnostic, if you say to me, is there a God? My answer is, I don't know. It's just as simple. Is there a God? I don't know. Do you believe there's one? No. Atheist agnostic. And the I don't know, I believe, is how the scientists should say it too. Because that's what science is. It doesn't prove anything. It proves what things aren't. And you can't really prove these negative things, right? So I always thought that was the correct way to look at it. Is there a God? I don't know. Do you believe there's a guy in the sky controlling everything? No, I don't. And I have yet to see the evidence as such. That's where I'm coming from tonight. And if you watch the show on Wednesday, I told you about how I grew up in a very Catholic family, but I got into reading Bible stories and dissecting them and trying to find the nuggets of truth. Now, the little warning I want to say about this whole thing is, when you're dealing with the Old Testament, it's not just like, okay, there are these fantastical stories. There are fantastical stories that a large group of people think is history. I know Jewish atheists that think the Exodus story is actually history. I will point out a few things to them, and then they'll quickly see that it's not. But that's the point of view I'm coming from. The second point of view I'm coming from, the big one, so I'm an atheist who has agnostic ways of looking at what it all is. The second one is I am a mythicist. I believe Moses, Noah, Adam and Eve, and 99.9% of a lot of stuff in the Old Testament is myth, including the New Testament. I don't believe Jesus was an actual person, and I am going to do an entire episode on Jesus mythicism. Jesus as a myth. And the episode will be on ephemerized gods. Little nod to Richard Carrier, who turned me on to that term. Ephemerized gods. Another subject. But I am a mythicist. I believe it's mythology mixed with history. There's the key one. So, yeah. Oh, we got a group in here now. Killer, come on in, people. We're going to have a good show. So if you guys understand that, that's how I'm going to start. I'm an atheist, agnostic, and a mythicist. And now, I'm going to give you, we're going to talk about something. Now, I actually thought tonight I was going to read a Bible quote. Well, you know what? I'll just read it. Numbers, and somebody might have already written this. People are already firing away Bible verses. I love this. Numbers 31, 17, 18, line 17. King James Version. I'm going to be reading that. And I recommend anybody that wants to look up a Bible verse, just Google one, and you will see multiple versions, and they are different. They're so different in their translations to me that it is kind of hard to say it's divinely influenced. But again, here's the quote. Numbers 31, 17 to 18. Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known a man by lying with him. But all the women children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. Excuse me? Pardon me? Where's the Me Too movement on this? This is shocking. This is moral. God willed it to be done. I thought I'd start with just that tonight. How do you read that to a child and explain that? Well, I've been watching a lot of people try to do it. And I'm going to start tonight with the story of Abraham. Now, literally minutes before this episode, I noticed something in the story of Abraham that a lot of people don't notice. So let me make sure. I have a million notes tonight. If you saw how many notes I wrote, you would, oh my God, people are chatting about the Super Bowl in here. I might watch it. I don't really watch sports, but I do like spectacle. So let me just make sure my notes are okay. Wow, here we go. So here's the Abraham story in a nutshell. Abraham comes after the Noah. So we have Adam and Eve, and then we have the Noah stuff and God wiping out Earth, right? Because he's mad and he's going to start it over. And then we have Abraham. And Abraham, so Abraham had the reason why he's an important character in the mythology is he's the guy that set up all the different kind of kingdoms and peoples. One of his kids, Ishmael, became the father of the Arabs, and then you have Isaac became the father of the Jewish people, and Ham. Look up Curse of Ham. I could do a whole show on just that. The Curse of Ham. That was another one of his sons. They became the Canaanites, and we'll talk a lot about the Canaanites tonight. So Abraham, God tells Abraham, you have to kill your son. Show me how much you love me. And he takes his son the next day up to, what's the name? Mount Moriah, the same mountain Jesus supposedly was crucified on. And Bubba Jones in the house. Do I know you, Bubba? Bubba Jones. Lazarus. He takes him up to kill him, and just as he's ready to plunge the knife, God says, stop! I was just checking your faith. I wanted to see, oh, you do love me. Right? Okay, here's something I didn't notice. The first thing is, when he gets stopped, it's not God that stops him, it's one of God's angels. And then he immediately goes, all right, I'll just kill the bull instead. And there was like a bull behind a bush, and he kills the bull instead. Kind of weird. But I always thought God stopped him. Why does the angel stop him? Any religious people in here know why that story's told that way? I always thought God stopped him. Like literally God incarnate was like, stop. Nope, it was an angel. Just like a lot of the appearances of Jesus were visions, not actual appearances. Most people don't realize that. Just like the snake in the Old Testament never says Satan or the devil. There's a lot of things that people assume without actually knowing, and I do think the details are important. So I noticed that earlier. Now, this story mirrors the Jesus story, meaning Jesus also. So God says, Abraham, kill your kid, and just as he's ready to do it, God realizes, oh, I'm going to do my kid instead later. And Jesus ends up being the sacrifice. Notice there's a lot of blood. The voodoo of the Bible, the magic, the mysticism, the ritual is blood magic. You know, in the world of paganism, there's different magics. There's like celestial magic, there's earth magic, there's water, then there's the bad one, the blood one. And it's funny that the character of the Old Testament, Yahweh of sorts, it's blood magic that is important in that story. I always thought that was interesting as coming from an occult point of view, that they were the ones that were the bloody sacrificers. Okay, so what's up with that story? How do you teach that story? Now, as a kid, the thing I thought about is, I'm trying to look at these quotes. You have a lot. The many sons of father. Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's a test of faith. Now, let's just examine just that story alone. In the Bible, it doesn't say what his thoughts are on the matter. It doesn't say Abraham cried all night and prayed to God. And it doesn't say that. He just kind of goes with the plan. Now, by showing this faith, God talks to Abraham. How did Abraham know it was God and not an invasive deity of sorts, or Satan, the accuser, the devil? How did he know? How did he know in his heart that it was really the one true God that he followed? I don't know. And even as a kid, I was like, how do you know? Like, if God right now went, Adam Cardone, like, how would I know it's him? I mean, I've seen in debate, they'll say, well, you'll know it in your heart. But what if you're mentally ill? Will God still speak to you? I don't know. These are just all questions that even as a little kid made no sense. Now, we're going to get to the apologetics of it all. Because there's basically one apologetic that covers all the bases. And I'll just say it now, and we're going to keep coming back to it, because there's some funny nuance that they'll add to these things. One of them is, it's straight up, how are we to know God's motive and God's mind? We just have to assume that God is all good and all perfect and trust. But how do we know that our senses are aligned to noticing that truth as a reality and we're not getting mixed signals? How do we know? How do you know that if you give this story of the Old Testament of Abraham almost killing his son, and you tell it to somebody who's mentally ill, that it's not going to trigger them? How do you know this? These are real questions I have for Christians. How do you know? And if you say you got to pray and feel it in your heart, I've done that. Believe me, I wish this was real. I wish there was an eternal paradise. Trust me, that would be great. But I see so much juggling of thought to make it work that it clearly isn't real. So when I hear someone say the Abraham story is a test of faith, it doesn't really do it for me, because where is that test of faith? And also, why is faith a virtue? That's my question. Where is the virtue in faith? Does anybody know? Please write it in the chat. I learned a new word today. Let me find this. I don't want to mess this up. It's too awesome. My God, I have so... Okay. Whenever I hear someone telling these stories, these Bible stories, like a preacher, like a not a Catholic priest, but a charismatic preacher. When they're telling these stories, they're telling them as if they were there. You can see it in their eyes. They're acting it out. They're like, Abraham looked up and said, my God, I hope, like they're acting it, embodying it, right? And I always thought that was interesting. Like they're embellishing these stories with their own emotional context. And even as a kid, I would notice that. I'm like, why are they doing that? And then when I started learning how to do magic tricks, I noticed something large. I was telling somebody today about it. There are magic tricks that I will do in a show, in a professional show, like a paid gig. And I listen to what they say after. Like if I can get an ear on someone's reaction after I've moved on during walk-around magic, I try to listen because it's going to give me some input if I'm on the right track. And even as a young budding magician, I noticed that people would hear or see me do a trick, and as soon as they would tell it to their friend, they would change the story. They would embellish it. Why? Well, there's an answer why. Why do people embellish? Why is the fish not this but this big? I'm talking about it all the time on this specific show. It's because you weren't there and you're never going to be able to have that experience. Ever, never, never. You weren't there. You're only able to hear my story. So for you to have an experience, I have to jazz it. I have to sound cool, look cool, and maybe add some details that fluff it a bit. We do this naturally without trying. It's in our DNA to do this. We evolved to do it. It's really weird when you notice it. And as a magician, I noticed it right away. I was like, my God, these guys are like literally see me do a trick and make up a new thing that just happened that I definitely didn't do. Now, a good shaman and a good wizard and a good magician and a good warlock and witch capitalize on that. They use it to their advantage. They know that people are able to do that and they use it against them. That's Witchcraft 101 from where I come. And so a lot of these Bible stories, of course, started off with weird stories that turned into these twisted notions. Now, if you just divorce it and make it all myth, again, what's the story being told? What are you teaching? What can you tell a little kid about the Abraham story that they can go, wow, I feel better about life and I'm going to go kick butt now? Where? Please, somebody tell me. I hope there's a Christian guy in here. I can't wait to see the comments of this after. Now, one of the reasons why a lot of religious people believe the Bible and the Old Testament and the New Testament, and I've heard this come out of their mouths and I've seen it in debate and I've seen it all over, is they'll say, I believe it to be true because the prophecies came true. The stuff in the Old Testament that was prophesied actually happened. Now, when you tell that to a guy that does magic full-time for a living, it makes me go, because prophecy isn't proof of anything. If I tell you I'm prophesizing that my car is going to all of a sudden start being parked on a different block, all I have to do is start parking on a different block to make it prophesized. If you have a prophecy that involves lots of people and you can get them to believe in it, that prophecy will come true. Not because of magic or God, just because of the collective unconscious of people pushing it that way. That's why they think the internet might be a good way of reading the future, because you can study where it's going. So the story of Abraham. Now, the reason why this episode came to be, you ready for this? I stopped watching religious debates a few years ago because I had watched thousands of them. I know every argument, every apologetic from each side of the story. I know the apologetics from this team, from that team, and this team. And after a while, I would watch debates to see if there was a new way to do it. If there was a new Christian argument or a new atheist point to bring out to point out some inconsistencies. And basically, after years and years and thousands of these debates, I've seen the same thing over and over. Well, a few weeks ago, I was bored and I put one on. And somebody brought up the Abraham story. And I forget who it was. Was it Dillahunty or was it Sam Harris. I've seen so many of these debates. I'm mixing them up now. Might have been Matt Dillahunty, he runs the show Atheist Experience. Now, I agree with 99% of that, what they do on that show. There's a few things on there I don't like, but they've been debating religious people for 20 years, and there's thousands of hours of debate. So the guy's on the debate, and the atheist guy says to the Christian, if God were to tell you right now to go kill your kid, would you do it? And it's what the religious man's answer, the Christian, that made me want to do this episode and spark my interest again. He said, I won't answer that question. I refuse to answer the question. Why? Because God wouldn't ask such things now. What do you mean? Well, Jesus came. The door of heaven's open. He will never ask that anymore. It doesn't make any sense. It's an illogical question. Well, Dillahunty didn't do what I would have done. I'd say, okay, great. Don't answer it. Now, let me ask you this. If I were to take you and plop you into Abraham's situation 2,200 whatever years ago, whenever it supposedly happened, would you kill your son? Like, I would have kept going and detailed it a little more. Because he wouldn't answer the question. Now, if I'm the Christian guy, I would have said the same thing. I would be like, all right, do I get to know everything I know now? Or do I do it without knowledge? So Abraham couldn't go Google anything. Abraham couldn't go to the doctors and say, hey, yo, I'm hearing voices. He couldn't do any of those things. He just heard voices and did what he did. Now, if you hear voices, I mean, if I heard voices, I think Bill Maher's the guy that said it. If he heard God say to him something, he'd go to the doctor first. As I would too. Wouldn't you? If I literally heard voices, I'd go to the doctors. Even if I thought it might be a deity communicating for me from beyond. I would go to the doctors just to make sure. You don't hear a lot about mental illness in the Bible. Why? Because they didn't know what it was at all. And to me, that's pretty serious. They had no clue. They didn't even know what germs were. They didn't know a lot. It was Bronze Age Palestine when the Jesus story happens and all that stuff. It's like Bronze Age Palestine. They didn't know anything. There were other parts of the world that were way more advanced, and I'm shocked that God wouldn't plop down his messengers where they could communicate with more people. They didn't do that. They picked kind of weird areas. But at any rate, that apologetics of I'm not answering the question, boo, bad. He basically admitted defeat there. He's like, I can't answer that. You could see it in his eyes. He didn't know what to do. You're like, wait. If you're a professional debater going against these heavy hitters, wouldn't you have a better answer than that? No, they don't. And I wanted to start with that Abraham story because to me that is a shocker. Anybody have thoughts on the Abraham story? Because, I mean... Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. This is what I wanted to show you. I'm glad Okay. So the Abraham story. I went on YouTube the other day and was trying to find more apologetics for the Abraham story. Because there ain't much other than we don't know what God's motives are. There's none. And what's the moral lesson? Wait, you're going to love this. So I found this preacher guy. And he literally starts by going, the Abraham story is not a moral lesson. It's a gospel presentation. Excuse me? Gospel presentation. What's that? Well, I realized something. When a lot of these guys don't have an answer, and this is again, I don't think it's malicious. I think it's human nature. It's survival. When the religious guy's in survival mode and he's getting cognitive dissonance and these ideas, his brain has to start coming up with things. So this guy comes up with, oh, it's not a moral lesson. It's a presentation. It's a scenario. It's a scene that happens so that the minister can use it. It's a presentation. It's a new word. It's a new definition of what these are. Kind of like this word. kind. K-I-N-D. Anybody know what kind is? Well, I'll tell you. If you see creationists debate Noah's Ark, they've come up with a new word, kind. So when you go, how can Noah have 2 of every animal on the earth, and then in a very short time, those few animals on the boat filled planet Earth again? The clever Christian who sat around and did a lot of juggling in his brain came up with this idea. Oh no, God didn't take 2 of every animal. He took 2 of every kind of animal. Foxes, dogs, coyotes, hyenas, wolves. That's a kind. He took 2 of those. And from those 2, he made the animals of that kind. The problem is if you ask a creationist to define kind, there's no definition. Kind of like, what's the definition of a gospel presentation as opposed to a moral lesson that God's teaching you? They come up with a new word and a new angle so that they can clear out the other. Because the other one they can't clear. It's too much. A diorama. Yeah, Amanda just brought up something. A lot of the diseases and infections people had in those days also caused mental illness, which is definitely true. I mean, you can get mentally ill from having a bad tooth if it poisons you. So, I love watching Christian apologetics, and I wanted, before I move on to the next segment, which is Moses, the Warlord, I wanted to talk about the notion of apologetics. And so I know a lot of Christian people, Catholics specifically, they don't believe in the Adam and Eve story. And I was told it wasn't real. And the Pope says that stuff's not real now. They're basically like, they're allegories, but the Jesus part's real. It's a little weird. Now, as a kid, you know, you grow up, you have Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, and one of the gods. Let's say Jesus for now. And eventually the Tooth Fairy is, you know, you realize it's your parents. The Easter Bunny's pretty obvious. Santa Claus, you wait, and then finally, when you get to the Jesus character, ain't nobody giving that one up. People take it very seriously, even though it's just like Santa Claus. Same. I've seen no difference. So, so a lot of people will say, oh, the guy that believes in the creation stuff, he's a dummy. They're just dumb. I hear it all the time, dumb Christians. I'm like, no, they're not dumb. And I'll explain why. How can you have an evolutionary biology degree and be a creationist? Oh, there are people that do. Why? Because we compartmentalize in our brains. They know this for a fact. And I always thought it was funny when a creationist or a Christian realizes that if you get rid of the Adam and Eve story, the Jesus part doesn't make sense. Therefore, you have to believe the Adam and Eve story. They have to believe Noah and Moses and the flood. And if you get rid of one of those points, the whole damn story just crumbles. There ain't no original sin. Where is it? If you get rid of Adam and Eve, where is the original sin? When did it start? Is it just human nature? I don't know. So a lot of Christians are like, all right, I got to justify the Adam and Eve story. I have to come up with why. And they do the juggle. And that's the apologetics. That's what I'm interested in, how they juggle it, how they come up with these concepts that they accept as a reality and then move on to the next one. Noah, how did he have these 2 animals? Well, that's it. They came up with kind. And how did he feed them? How do you feed 2 tigers? How much food just 2 tigers eats or 2 lions? So they came up with it. He put them asleep. Doesn't say that in the Bible, but they came up with that. Oh, he put them in like a stasis, like in Aliens, in the pod. Someone wrote, sin is delicious. Well, most sin is delicious. That's why it's a sin. It's funny because now I'm coming from an Epicurus point of view, and Epicureanism is not hedonism. Because if you're hedonistic, you can't sin anymore. You can't be delicious because you've worn out. That's why Epicurean is about nuancing it so that you can enjoy it longer. It's a scientific version of moderation, or organizing your lusts and tastes so that you can enjoy them to their fullest without it destroying you, and then you can't enjoy anything. That's Epicureanism. So yes, sin is delicious. So now let's talk about Moses. Now again, I'm a mythicist. I don't believe Moses was a real guy, as most historians don't. Not only do historians are pretty sure he wasn't a real guy, he's an archetype. He's the bringer of the law. A lot of mythology has that archetype. A lot of religion has that archetype. It's a code. He's showing up with a code for your people. I also don't believe in Exodus. Not only is it my belief, there is no evidence of a biblical Exodus like the one described in the Old Testament. Not even a little bit, not a tiny bit. There's not a cup, a saucer, an encampment in the desert. None. And if you break that story up on how many people were in the desert wandering around for how many years, and the fact that the economy of Egypt would have gone into a spin, all the neighboring regions would have known about it. The Egyptians would have known about it. They were very good record keepers. Now they were embarrassed and didn't write it down. Not true. Everybody else would have known about it. No evidence. So I don't think any of it happened. I think that the Jewish people in what we call Israel now, the promised land, the area, I do believe that obviously they're a group of people. I think their history isn't what they think it is. It's the history that they grew up with because it sounds good. It's epic and story-like and shows a group of people rising above torment, which who doesn't like that, right? We can all learn from that. But that's not, if you do a lot of research, what you come up with. It's a little bit more nuanced and not so much of we were picked on and God saved us. It's not like that. And I can do an entire episode on just the evidence of Exodus, and I might do one. I might. Moses the Hierophant. Well, here's a little Bible story I'll throw out just now about Moses before we get to him being a warlord. So Moses was a Semitic, a Jewish guy born, and they got rid of him, and the Egyptians got him and raised him as an Egyptian, and he rose up to be the leader of his people who were slaves, building the buildings and the pyramids in Egypt, which never happened. They know for a fact that the pyramids were paid workers now. And it's funny, I had a debate with a Jewish girl in a bar once, and I mentioned that the Jews didn't build the pyramids like you are told as a child, and it's in the movies, and it's in cartoons. I mean, it's everywhere. It's history, of course. And when I told her that, she got really mad, started texting her brother in Israel. Both of them went online and were Googling it while I'm sitting on the bar, and this is what they did. They were like, wait, what? Like, they were shocked at what they found. Because, again, Google, anybody on here, Google it, look up Exodus never happened. A very famous rabbi named, I want to pronounce his name right, Rabbi Volpe, or it's W-O-L-P-E, Volpe. He's a pretty charismatic, smart, cool guy. I actually think he's kind of cool. He Peter, read what Peter wrote. He just sent out a little nugget there. Rabbi Volpe is a kind of cool rabbi in the West Coast, and he told his very liberal Jewish congregation that Exodus didn't really happen, and that it's okay, we can still learn a lesson from it. That's great. That's what it should be. Even though the lesson in it is a little weird if it's fake. I don't know. Anywho, so here's my Moses story. There's a little Bible story where Moses is in the chamber of the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh has a wizard that's powerful, and obviously Moses is also a wizard, and they both have magic wands, and they throw them on the ground, and they turn into snakes, fight each other, and Moses' snake beats the Egyptian magician's snake. Cool story, bunch of baloney, but it's not. That is a real magic trick. That's an actual trick. It's a type of an asp that in that region, if you were a magician or a street performer or a real wizard, you would hold it and squeeze it really tight, the snake by its head, and it would get stiff, the spine. You'd put pressure on its back, probably really bad for the snake. And if you hold it like that, it looks like a stick, like a magic wand. And when you throw it on the ground, it crawls away. So somebody saw that, and that's where that story clearly came from. I'd like to know the Christian apologetics for that one. The Egyptian was a fake magician, and Moses was a real one? I don't know. So it says in the Bible, now let's get this out. Let me get this out. So Moses shows up to the Pharaoh. He's like, yo, we're leaving. The Pharaoh's like, no, you're not. And then there's the curses, the plagues. God starts to plague Egypt until it bugs them out so much that they're able to get up and leave. And then the Egyptians chase them. And then Moses destroys the enemy in the Red Sea, which they think it was called the Reed Sea, and it's a dry lake bed now. And then they're in the desert for 40 years. Now, that journey in the desert for 40 years is ridiculous because I live in Queens, New York City. And it would be like me and, I don't know, a large group of humans leaving Rockaway and trying to walk to New Jersey. It wouldn't take us 40 years. It would take, or Pennsylvania, whatever. It would take us, I don't know, a week. Not even. Not 40 years. I think they put an extra 0 as a mistake in the text. So here we go. One little story in the Bible that's always left out is when God does go get the law. Goes up the mountain, talks to God directly. He's a direct conduit, right? And when he shows up, we all know what the Jewish guys were doing. He was gone for so long. How long was he gone? I just forgot. It was a long time. A year? A 2 year? It was like a ridiculous long time. They've got another God rolling. And he comes down, he sees it, he freaks out, and he orders 3,000 Jewish people put to death. It's in the story. Look it up. They never told us that when I was a kid. I don't remember that part. I would have definitely remembered Moses killing 3,000 of his own people. I would remember that. I don't. But it's in there. Look it up. It's all there. Why is that casually left out? It's lying through omission by, washing over a lot of these details. I find them to be very important details. Now, one detail I always thought was funny in the Bible, and I like asking rabbis this one. The word for God, Elohim, is plural. Now, from what I gather in my research, the Jewish people weren't always monotheistic. They were polytheistic with different groups in that large group of the Semitic people. And if you say Semitic, it's not just Jewish people. There's a whole slew of Semitics. The Hyksos were another Semitic group. And some people think they're actually Jewish. That's where the Jewish story comes from. Look up Hyksos, Hyksos. That is a real group of people that actually did have an exodus from Egypt that was recorded. And there are scholars that think that might be where that exodus story comes from. It comes from the Hyksos legend, and somehow it got mixed into the Jewish mythology. That story of the 3,000 people dying is pretty shocking. But it's not as shocking as some of these other stories. Wow. Okay. All right. Well, there were other gods back then. There was Baal, Moloch, Yahweh. There's a female one I can't remember. Adonai. Oh, Fallon's in here. Fallon, you know a lot about this stuff. So here we go. I hear a cat. There's a cat right outside. We have a lot of stray cats in my neighborhood. It's pretty wild. Okay, here we go. So they finally get to the promised land, and the Canaanites are there. I mean, there's other people there, but here's the quote in the Bible. This is Deuteronomy 20, 16 to 18. However, in the cities of the nations, the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. Remember, God is a real estate agent in this story. Do not leave alive anything that breathes. Whoa. Completely destroy them. The Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivitites, and the Jebusites, as the Lord your God has commanded you. Kill them all. That's it. Now, what's the apologetics of that? Oh, wait till you hear these. This is the good one. Well, according to what I've listened to, and anybody know who Cliff Nechtel is? Cliff Nechtel is a charismatic street preacher who travels a lot. He's kind of famous. And he shows up to like college campuses and he street preaches and people debate him. And I got to see him live when I was in college. And he's still around. And I watched him do his rounds of apologetics on the Moses genocide stuff, of him commanding literal genocide against a group of people. Now tell me if this sounds familiar. The Canaanites. Okay, these are the people that he's like, kill them all. Kill their chickens, kill their livestock, nothing breathes. And then he says, then when they came back and he realized they didn't kill everybody, this is where he freaks out. Let me see if I have this up. Hold on a second here. No, hold on. Oh yeah, well this is Numbers. Yeah. Yeah, he basically said the women that were young, that are virgins, you can take them as slaves. And we're going to get to the slavery part in a second. So, where's the morale in this? Well, there is a morale. Here's what it is. If those people that he's ordering them to kill were, let's see. It says the Amalek, the Amalekites, the Amorites, the one of the groups that you're supposed to slaughter, it says that they were sorcerers that could transform into animals. Okay? Samuel 5:3. So it says that the people you're going to kill, they're sorcerers and they can turn into animals. And they sacrifice babies to Moloch. They burn their babies. Doesn't it sound familiar? It's a witch hunt. It's Satan. It's pre-Satan Satan. They picked a group. They said they're werewolves and vampires. They kill their babies and go. Take them out. That's literally the justification. There are people so rotten that they just deserve to be wiped out. That's it, right there. Okay? If that's true, if that story is actually literally true, then great. Yeah, go kill them all. If they're that evil, yeah, sure, wipe them out. Think about it. Think about if you're born mentally ill and you hear these stories, what happens? How do you learn what the good is in this, what to take and move on? I don't know. Bill Maher said if there's a turd in the pool, I don't get in. One turd. One. Floating. I find another pool. Bohemian. Someone just wrote Bohemian Grove. Have you seen the video? There's a video of it. Actually, for those of you that, I don't know if you know this, Alex Jones, who's a bit of a kook, he's a kook. He snuck in to Bohemian Grove. Look it up. He snuck in. So I'll give him props for that. That's kind of cool. Here we go. So let's look into this evil god Moloch that these people worship, that made them deserving of death. Well, first of all, Moloch might be a mistranslation. There's a thing called MLK. It's an abbreviation, and they use that to describe a type of a sacrifice, a milk sacrifice. There's not a lot of chat of Moloch. It's not. It's a deity. It's rare. They don't mention it a lot. But people sacrifice things to Yahweh too. It says God loves the smelling of burning bull. He loves it, it says. Wow. That's a weird little thing to like if you're in the floating in outer space. All right. I like the smell of burning bull too, especially when I'm going to grill. Yeah, okay. So the word El, like Elohim, sometimes they use the word El to describe Moloch because he was a god, a popular god. Now, the notion of them sacrificing babies to fire and all that, maybe they did, but there's evidence to say that they didn't, and they were just, it was a demonized idea. Now, honestly, I don't believe any of this actually happened as it's written. The Jewish people might have been a group of nomadic warriors like the Hyksos, and they did show up, and they were like, we're just going to take this area now. It's ours, you know? Now, there was a reason for conquering. One of the reasons and one of the resources you got from these types of conquering is you got slaves. And we're going to get into that in a second. It's one of the reasons why you would want to do that. Let me see here on Moloch. Yeah. So these genocides in the Bible, I just, it blows my mind that there's a concept of how are we to know what God is doing? Because in your mind, if you really believe that to be real and you're just killing man, women, and child, you're not really killing them. You're just helping God move them around. Right? If you believe in the afterlife and you get stabbed, it's like, oh, I'm just getting moved here. Or if God sends a tornado to crush down on people, you could say, oh, he just took them to heaven. It's fine. I always thought it was weird as a kid when people go, God only takes the good. Or God only takes the bad. I've heard both. Or they got what they deserved. God send them to hell. Or God takes the good. I used to hear both, and I was always confused at the mentality of that. It's just humans justifying and using wishful thinking for their own little selfish dopamine blast that they're going to get in their brain by thinking those thoughts. It's kind of selfish. And so these stories, like God commanding this character who's all good, if God is all good, we have to think that that was good, right? That's the idea. And I remember asking these questions as a kid and just don't ask, just accept. What if you aren't sure? What if you have doubts? What are you supposed to do? Yeah, Baal was the god of the Canaanites. Baal and Moloch get mixed together sometimes. They do. Yeah. And I only know this because of my playing cards I'm working on. We're doing this satanic deck of playing cards, and we're looking at all these different gods that got the Satan tag. And Baal definitely got the Satan stamp, even though he was pretty popular. Well, he is a bit of a kook, Alex Jones, but I will say this really quickly. Alex Jones, I've seen on more than one occasion him say something and it get taken out of context. Now, I'm not saying that he hasn't said crazy things, but even after the Sandy Hook thing, he pretty quickly admitted that it wasn't fake, and he just always says, I assume things are fake because of the false flags the government has done in the past. And I will give him that. Anybody that says you're a crazy conspiracy theorist, I just say, what about the Tuskegee experiment? Is that a conspiracy? What is that? How about the Gulf of Tonkin? Even 9/11 and us going to wars that had nothing to do with 9/11 right after, like Iraq. So that I'll give Alex Jones a couple points for that. Now, is he tactless? Yes. Is he a showman? Yes. Sounds a lot like Trump. These are tactless showmen who go too far and aren't good at pulling back when they have to. They're not good at it. So I don't think he should be banned. The fact that Alex Jones is banned from all platforms, not good. That to me is the equivalent of book burning. And I don't like that. He should be allowed to be a kook. Let him be kooky. We can criticize him. All right, let's keep moving here. God, it's already, wow. See how time cooks when you get on the juicy subjects? Woo! All right, so let's talk about slavery. To me, this is the big one. This is the big one. Because we just watched and are still watching a movement of people standing up for oppressive things, especially on racism stuff, right? Ooh, what's this? Read Fallon's comment, everybody. It's good. So, to me, slavery is a big one because it's something we understand. We do. We experienced it in our, not in our lives, but just like last week, man. I mean, antebellum America is not that long ago. You know, just over 100 years ago, we actually had people in chains in this country. The African Americans were literally chained up in a boat brought here 150 years ago. Thank goodness it's gone. But what's interesting is that slavery then and the civil rights and the KKK stuff in the 60s, take a guess what they used to justify what they were doing. Take a guess, folks. Oh, yes, the Bible. Oh, this is a thick packet that I wrote on this one. So let's just talk about what does slavery mean, first of all? Because my favorite apologetic is this one. This is the subject where I can show you in 2 seconds people are either ignorant about their Bible that they're an expert on, or they're lying through their teeth because they can't justify it. So they just lie. I've seen it. And on this subject alone. And here's why. So what is slavery? I wrote down some different definitions because they're not all accurate. Someone deprived of freedom, and the owner benefits from that. Somebody owns them. They're deprived of their freedom, and there's a benefit. An institution where one can own ownership right over another. Oh, yeah. It's just an institution where one human can own another as property. That's another definition. And the law of property is applied to a person, not family law. And in some situations, it's both. There's a little bit of family law and property law. Temporarily or indefinitely. To me, that's a good definition of slavery, right? So let's just, or there it is. So the main argument that the apologetic Christians and Jewish people will have about slavery in the Bible, because it's kind of hard to get any human being alive walking today to say slavery's okay. Nobody. I've yet to meet somebody that goes, yeah, once in a while it's okay. I've never met any human being that walks. Now, guaranteed, yeah, we can find some really kooky Nazi KKK types that might say that, but even amongst them, I guarantee you that's a rare thing to say. Like, we should just own humans, because it just doesn't work out. We know this. It's a bad, bad, bad thing. But their main argument is this. And if you're a Christian watching this, you either would say this, or your rabbi or pastor would say this. The slavery of the Bible's different, man. It's not the same. God doesn't think it's great. He gives you some rules around it, but he doesn't say it's wonderful, right? Also, they'll say that the slavery in the Bible, the reason why it's different is it's indentured servitude. That's what it is. You're owned for 6 years, and then they let you go. If anybody says that to you, if you bring up slavery in the Bible, they're either ignorant or lying. It's one or the other. They're either ignorant or they're giving you a mistruth. They're actually misspeaking on purpose. And here's why. In Exodus 21, it gives you the rules of slavery. Okay? It explains it. And here's in a nutshell what it is, and I will read some stuff. It basically says that it's under the notion that the Jews are the chosen ones. They are special. They are different. If you're a Jewish guy and you own another Jewish guy, the rules are different. Yes, it's indentured servitude. It's 6 years, and then the 7th year he goes. If you beat them and they don't die, you're okay. If you beat them and they die, you get in trouble. Okay. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth doesn't apply to your slave, even if they're Jewish. If you gouge out the slave's eye, you don't have to gouge your eye out. No. You just pay them or free them. You free them, actually. It's okay to rape your slaves. Totally fine. Numbers 31. There's that one. Yeah. So there are these rules, but they don't apply to everyone. And I'll tell you why. Leviticus 44 to 46. Check this out. The slaves come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. They will become your property as you can bequeath them to your children. So if you own slaves from other nations, that's it. It's exactly the same as the U.S. one. There is a difference, and that's the thing they never point out. Not only is there a difference between if you're a Jewish guy and you own another Jewish guy, or you're a Jewish guy that owns any other type of person, one of the things that's interesting is it does explain if you're a Jewish guy and you have an indentured servant, whether they be Jewish or not, but they're going to get free. If they're married and you do this ceremony where you pierce their ear, you own them forever. There was a ceremony and a system that you could do to own that guy forever. So again, if anybody says this to you, that the slavery in the Bible's different, I don't know what to say. It's not. And not only is it not different, it's worse than anything, because it's like, it's this group of people that have aligned themselves with a set of rules that don't apply to anybody else, especially human rights issues. It's a little weird. And I don't know how you teach your kids that this is a good lesson. Also, well, you don't. You just leave this part out. I mean, no one goes into detail with their children, the slavery rules of the Bible. They just leave it out. Now, another argument is, well, it's the times. That's what it was like then. So why wouldn't God say, being omniscient, they're going to make slavery illegal eventually all over the world? Oh, except for one place. After we went into Libya recently and caused the coup of sorts, remember when Hillary Clinton said, we came, we saw, he died? Not long after that, a slave market opened up in Libya because it went kind of haywire and back to the caveman times. So slavery's gone. Why wouldn't God say, thou shalt not own another human? Done. Easy. Why wouldn't God teach germ theory? Why would he tell you that gay people are an abomination and don't eat shellfish, but I know that your economy's based on slavery, so all right, I'll give you some rules to follow to make it safe. That's basically the apologetics in a nutshell. And not only that, the New Testament. Finally, the wrathful God of the Old Testament realizes the only way to fix this problem is to send his kid down to take care of it, the big J. So God sends himself to sacrifice himself to himself to fix the problem he originally created. That guy, Jesus, he never said, thou shalt not own another human. He didn't bring it up. And not only that, Fallon brought up something really cool. You're right. Actually, the caste system predates some of these stories, which is interesting. In the New Testament, it says, slaves, be obedient to your human masters with fear and trembling, in sincerity of heart, as to Christ. So if you're a slave, you treat your master with the same kind of sincerity as you would treat Christ. That is not condemning slavery. It's condoning it. It's saying it's all good, people. Now, the one historian who's also a Christian said God had to do that because it was built into the economy. That sounds like the KKK justifying slavery in the South because it was the economy. Same argument. Even as a little kid, I knew this was weird. And when I watch people try to justify these stories, I'm like, oh, stop. Stop. Redo them. Rewrite them. Let's use Harry Potter instead. Literally, you could take the Harry Potter books and find these moral teachings in that book. Non-divinely influenced. Mind you, if these are divinely influenced, they're so heavily flawed in their logic and in their tonality. For me, it's a tonality that triggers my brain to say this is a fallacy like no other. Serfdom. Yeah. Well, we have slavery now. It's just, it's like the sweatshop style where there's not many jobs. You have to work there. And if you work there, you have to live there and follow the rules. And if you don't follow the rules, you're out. Also, don't forget, when we freed the slaves here, a lot of them went back because they didn't know what to do. So they just kind of went back, and yeah, they weren't slaves legally, but they still worked for the guy because they had nothing else to do. So that's a little weird too. That's what happened. That's why we have a problem here. We freed everybody, but didn't have a cleanup problem. They had to fix the problem. You can't take a group of people, treat them like that, and go, all right, you're off to the races. Obviously, we know this. So, the justification of these slaves. Now, here we go. Let me look at this. I wrote some interesting stuff here. Deuteronomy. I always thought that was a funny word. The theist guy said, do all people have equal dignity? Well, according to a Christian who believes in God the Creator, yes. But if there's no God, there is no dignity. It's a very simple thing that a lot of theistic people think of the non-theistic types, is that as soon as you get rid of God, you have nothing to base your moral code on. You don't, you're just on the seat of your pants. You're flying on the seat of your pants. You have no role model to follow that's a perfect example of such. And they'll say, well, God is the perfect example of such. The God that commands rape's okay. There is no thou shalt not rape. Slavery's okay. Killing people. Right? That's the perfect guy. We're supposed to assume he's perfect. Mind you, what if you're mentally ill and you read those things? I keep bringing up mental illness only because it's a new thing that we just learned about recently. And they didn't know. So the theist has this notion of, you have to have God for morale. And I go, well, isn't morale relative? What do you mean? Well, obviously we think slavery's bad now, and then they didn't. Things changed. I do think we are programmed through our evolutionary process to have certain moral codes. I think they call them monkey morals because we've had them since we were the cousins of the monkey. Stealing, for instance, killing. These things were kind of hardwired to know they're not good for survival. If you're stealing, you're going to get slapped and punched by the other primates because you're messing it up and it's going to be harder to live. So eventually we evolved to have certain compassionate ideas for survival techniques. These are morals, people. And then add in society and new ways of doing things. You know, the fact that there's no commandment that says thou shalt not rape is shocking. If we were going to write commandments today, that would be in there. Do not sexually take advantage of anybody. Even your spouse. Even your spouse. Even your girlfriend or spouse or boyfriend or whatever. That should be a command. It's not. It was never put there. Why? Because that's how it was. And if you go back in time 100,000 years ago, it was even crazier. Justin just said something. It's been proven over proven over and over, the mental illness of the Bible comes to life when people kill their whole family one night because it's God's will. Yeah, it really is. Sam Harris made a really good argument. When people go, I hate all religions. Sam Harris, great argument point. He goes, look, you're saying all religions are the same. Well, he's like, no, they're not. They're like the word sports. Sports aren't all the same. You have badminton, and then you have MMA. they're so different. It's insane. The type of person that's attracted to that sport. I mean, do you know anybody that plays badminton professionally? They're very different, I'm sure, than someone who's, than Kimbo Slice. Different everything. Different values and techniques and just the whole thing's different. So if you are, and this is Sam Harris again, if you're a member of the Jain religion, which is a sect of Hinduism where they are so pacifistic, they don't breathe in bugs. They wear masks and they walk with brooms. And look up Rat Temple in India. It's a really neat thing. They have these temples where there's rats running around. Why? They don't kill them. They love rats. It's fine. They're pacifists. If you have a Jainist who's an extremist, who is he going to go murder? The worst that would happen to a Jainist extremist is they would starve to death in their apartment because they won't eat anymore, right? They're not going to really harm many people except for themselves. If you have an extremist Abrahamic follower, look out, folks. Get out the chainsaws. Get out the weaponry. Extremist Torah follower, Christian, or Muslim. If they follow the rules to the T, if they have a mental illness, they're not so good at interpreting the Bible or the Old Testament or the Quran, we have a problem. We have a time bomb. That's not good. If you gave somebody who's mentally ill the Bible and told them to read all of these passages I've read tonight, they're not going to come out of it probably in a good space. I don't think they would be able to handle it. Well, there's a reason why the Quran has yet to have a reformation, Fallon. I forget if it's Sam Harris who also says, is it Sam Harris? No, Christopher Hitchens always says Islam's the most dangerous. And here's why. The Jewish people say the Messiah is coming. There's room for improvement. Like there's a new thing that's going to happen that's going to make it better. And the Jewish people do like debate. They do. It's part of their tradition. It's one of the qualities of Judaism I do like. I think it's kind of cool. They're into being smart and debating. But if you get down to the monotheistic thing, they're over. Oh, there's only one God. Only one. Only one. To me, if there's one God or 10,000, doesn't matter. It's the same thing. But for them, it's very important to be the originators of monotheism, even though they're not. Zoroastrianism predates it. Then you have the Christians. They come along. And yeah, they caused a lot of problems. But they got reformed. Why? Because again, Christ's coming. He's coming back. Get ready. There's room for improvement. The Muslims and Muhammad and that whole scene, it says it's done. It's over. It's all done. Here it is. Here's the final book. This is the last chapter of that. Don't change anymore. It doesn't need reformed. That's basically what happened. And so there's actually something really interesting, and I wish I knew the name, but after Muhammad, there's a Muslim cleric that wrote, and I don't think it's in the Hadith. I think it's in something else, but he wrote that like number juggling is evil. Number juggling. Math. And that's the moment that the Arab world went from the epicenter of inventing everything we know of to coming to a grinding halt and focusing on Islam as their main export. And I think that's not so good. The one thing I wanted to end on tonight, I don't want to go too long because I literally could talk about this for 8 hours without stopping. It's one of my favorite things to juggle in my mind, how this came about. I noticed something, even as a little kid, that bugged me out. Fallon, is that it? Albin Ghazali? Oh, you're good, Fallon. I love that you're in here. Really, I appreciate this. Folks, Fallon just wrote Albin al-Ghazali. Is that him? That's the guy that said numbers are bad? Yeah. Not too many Nobel Prizes in science coming from those areas. The Jewish guys, there's only a couple of them. They have a lot of science prizes. Al-Ghazali. Wow. Al-Ghazali. What a boy, he's a real brain surgeon of sorts, huh? So I noticed something as a kid. I used to ask my parents this. I used to ask, I don't know if my mom's watching this tonight. She might be. An extreme Buddhist, says Dallas, would be one peaceful neighbor who would feel horrible for just raising their voice. Yeah. Although the Buddhists, when you mix in theology, because Buddhism is supposed to be an atheistic movement, they quickly added theology. Why? We evolved to believe in deities. I did a whole special on that one. There it starts to get hairy again. So I used to ask my parents, like, God, he can see everything at all times. Yes. Okay. And he knows everything. Yes. And he made everything. Yes. So, is he omniscient? Yes, he is. And that's the problem. If God knows all, and he knows where it's going, this really doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. It takes the free will out. How do we have free will if he's omniscient and knows where it's all going to go? I'm confused. The fact that God's omniscient kind of makes sense in the sense that I personally now don't believe in a free will at all. No way. Everything that I'm thinking of right now came from something. It came from either a chemical process or that's naturally happening right now, or it came from previous knowledge, previous influence, me here, everything. It's a puzzle. It's a million things coming together. That would mean God knows everything coming together and where each little train's going to go. That kind of makes sense to me on a philosophical, fun way to look at a God kind of thing, right? But if that's true, then why does he test people? Why does he dangle the carrot and test people? He knows what they're going to do. Why would he put in the Garden of Eden the tree of knowledge, knowing farewell that they're going to eat the apple and have to be condemned to torment and suffering? That means as he's creating Adam and Eve, he knows they're going to suffer really bad. He's like, I'm going to have fun here, but oh, they're going to suffer. What does that mean? Again, the Christian apologetic look is, how are we to know God's will? And to me, that's pretty a cheap way to look at it. If you're going to say, how do I know what the plan of the universe is? That's fine. That's what I'll say. I don't have any clue, but I don't say I have the answer. I don't say I have the answer. I have the answer to my own personal stuff maybe, but I don't have your answer. No, my way is not your way maybe. Most likely it's not. So that whole notion of omniscience to me is interesting, but it causes a problem. As soon as that free will thing shows up, you take free will out of this, there ain't no story anymore. Adam and Eve makes no sense. Punishing humans for it makes no sense. Why would you punish somebody if they don't have a free will? If they're predispositioned to follow this thing and you do it and they do it, why are you punishing them then? They were going to do it anyways. Makes no sense. Makes no sense to me. As a child, it angered me. As an adult, it doesn't anger me. As a child, it angered me. Because not only did it not make sense, it made sense to the people around me, the adults, the teachers. But when I asked them to explain it to me, they would get mad and change the subject, which means it made sense in one box of their brain. But in all the other boxes, it didn't. Their subconscious said, beep, 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 bad. It would be like me going into the mall and going, Santa's not real. It does that, right? To me, that's what these things do to your boxes in your head. So you're like, I don't want to hear it. And they move over to another box. Wow. Whew. I've only had one sip this whole time. How is everybody? Please chat. Can I take a break? What do we have here? My God, there's so much in here. I don't agree. Wait. Free thinking. No room for the tabula rasa. Yeah. Wow, folks, come on, chime in. We got a crazy chat in here. A lot of people chatting some good stuff. Fallon, thank you for that. gosh, look, boom, man, I got some donors tonight. Folks, everything that you guys donate goes in the show. If you're a new watcher, hit the subscribe button, hit the notify button. Just taking a break here. Wow, I just rattled off a bunch of stuff here, and I really wanted to end it on this notion of the free will. Because lots of great, there's a lot of things I brought up in this one. What are your thoughts, everybody? Did you enjoy that rant? I don't know, it's a rant. It's just me expelling some points that I, over the years, have thought about. And I think about the billions and billions of people that talk about these stories in a completely different way than I just talked about them. I did experience a religious upbringing of sorts. I came from the Catholic, where the brainwashing of the Catholic thing is a little different. Yeah, the Protestant one's a little different. Obviously, they're all different. Oh, let me do a beer yawn. Hold on. Oh, ooh, ha. Whenever I drink hops or barley drinks, I get yawning. I yawn. This is a non-alcoholic beer that's black as hell. Look at that. It's wonderful. Well, we have someone named Hellish Smog, and this was his first stream, and I welcome you. Thank you for coming in, man. I love chatting. Hellish Smog, you'll see my people that come in here that participate in this show are a group of smart, thoughtful people. And any of us in here aren't the type that if you come in here with your religious stuff that we think is nonsense. And I don't say that to be mean. It's nonsensical. I'm not, it's nonsense. No, it's nonsensical. It doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. So I'm here to learn. And if you can change my mind with some things, here are my ears. My heart is open. It's open for it. I like the truth. Now, I am a firm believer that none of us will ever know any truths all the way. We might get close to some, but we'll never know. Facts aren't truth. And this is why I have a problem with censorship and free speech stuff happening right now in this medium online. This fact checking that goes on Twitter and YouTube and, oh, your facts are wrong. What facts? Where? What? Show me the facts, because facts are all debatable at this point. Just because it's written down in a newspaper, even by a scientist, does not mean it's a fact. No way. It might be close to the truth, but it's not. I mean, it's not the truth. It's a fact, but it's not truth. That's what I meant to say. And I think we can get close. So I'm just trying to get close to the truth. That's all this is. Dallas just said, take a drink, break, rev. I'm a talker. I get paid to talk, but I enjoy it too. I'm going to have a great Friday night tonight. I am going to enjoy my Friday. I'm going to go to bed kind of. I don't stay out too late. I stay up late and I get up early. I'm that kind of a guy. And this show, Behind the Devil's Curtain, is when I first decided that I am definitely going to do a YouTube show, full on, full time. This was the show that came to mind that I wanted to do. It's the culmination of all the things that I've put time and effort and thought into in my whole life since I was a child. And that is sleight of hand and forbidden knowledge. Those two things. Sleight of hand, magician technique, and esoteric, occult, forbidden things. And when I put them together, I find that I discover what I call real magic. And when I leave, I'm going to start thinking of the next episode. I have a lot of these Devil's Curtain episodes up here that I got to get ready, because I don't like to share with you junk. I don't want this show to be just fluff and junk. I want it to be meat, real meat that's chewable, that makes all of you guys go do your own research, and I know you do. Look at this. I mention one thing and people are like all over. I love it. That's right, William. Not one source. You got to do all sides. And it's getting harder to do all sides. So let's just say there's the Democrats and the Republicans on the as two sides of political spectrum in America. You can go study those two sides, but what if there's one other thing over here running both of those things? So now it's just a one-sided thing, right? So it's getting harder to do that. Everything that we're doing right now, I'm going through multiple private companies to get my message to you. And I really don't like that. It's a little scary. At any minute, one of the four things involved to get my voice to you could get, and does all the time. If they don't like you and you're not leaning up with what's making them money, you're out. And it could be the thing that you're on, your team. It could be the team that you're not on. Who knows? That's why I don't like censorship. I don't like fact checking. I don't like that. So, yep, that's what I have to say. These shows, if you're new, subscribe, notify. I do 3 a week. This type behind the devil's curtain, I don't do. I do every other week. Magic method every 3-4 weeks. That's me teaching magician stuff to non-magicians and real magicians. And the other show, which I do a lot, is called Evening Hour. And I'll do one Monday, Wednesday, and most likely also next Friday. I'm starting to get a little busy with my work. I'm getting live gigs. Here, good news, folks. So I live in the world of bookings. I get booked to do magic shows. I'm getting bookings in October and in the summer. That's a good sign. People are feeling confident. Their morale is up. They're feeling healthier and happier. It's a new year. There's a new boss in town. There's a lot of new things. Whether you like the new boss or not, it doesn't matter. It's new. And people like this. And I like it. So the News Hour is a show that I have fun with, and I did a Pez episode last week, and fun things. Sometimes it's serious, but mostly it's fun. Yes, thank you, Amanda. It did. I wanted Wednesday's episode as the precursor to this to get you behind what I've been doing with my brain since I was a kid and how I look at these stories. I always thought, wow, these crazy Bible stories, maybe they have a little bit of fact. The one that blew my mind, and I really am going to end after this, it says one of the plagues of the Bible, the plague of frogs. There are frogs falling from the skies. It sounds ridiculous. It's happened. They're called water spouts. They happen over lakes and rivers and things. It's a tornado that happens over a water source. It sucks up the water, fish and all, and spits them miles away. So, yes, frogs have fallen from the sky. It has rained fish and frogs. That's real. So as a kid, I thought that those stories were kind of cool to figure out where the reality is, because I was told these Bible stories were real, and I knew they weren't happening the way I was told they were happening. Wow. Folks, I had a great time tonight. I'm going to leave and go enjoy my Friday. And I will see you all on Monday. If you're new, hit like and subscribe. To all my donors out there, folks, awesome. You have no idea what it means. I get goosebumps every time I see a crowd and I see people supporting. It means I'm doing the right thing, and it is a morale boost for me. These shows are an insane amount of work. I like working, but it's fun to know that people are actually getting something out of it, and it makes me happy. And that's all it is. And thank you, donors. It all goes in the show. Dallas, Fallon, Aaron, Mantlion, everybody. Thank you. If you're having fun, spread the word, tell your friends, and I'll see you here on Monday. My name's Reverend Cardone, and you're watching episode 8 of Behind the Devil's Curtain. And I'll take you out with my end credits. Thank you, everybody.